Hey everybody, welcome to Legal Marketing Live. This is our debut episode. My name is Daniel Decker. I'm the co-founder and partner here at Spotlight Branding, and I'm joined by Mark Cerniglia, my partner today.
Glad to be here. Glad to get this Facebook Live going.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to start today by talking a little bit about your brand and why your brand matters as an attorney. So for me, Mark, branding is one of those terms that is kind of overused. A lot of consultants like to use it. It's thrown around a lot. I'm not sure that a lot of lawyers really understand what exactly their brand is, and maybe even more importantly, like how it's relevant to them as a law firm. So you want to start there, kind of tell us like why, like we know what Coca-Cola is, we know what big brands are, but how's that relevant to a small law firm?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, to put it simply, you can define brand multiple ways. I think the simplest definition is just that branding is kind of the image or the perception you're creating about your services or your product. So I think for starters, right then and there, it's very applicable to attorneys because people are coming to you with a pretty big problem in their life, and so when it comes to legal services, your brand is people thinking you're an expert at what you do, or how good you are at what you do. And so, you mentioned big brands like Coca-Cola and Nike, or maybe even Starbucks. Like, when we think about Starbucks, they're kind of the industry leader in coffee. If I was to say who's the industry leader in, beverages or soda, you might say, Coca-Cola or something like that. So, and I think that when you apply that on a smaller level, when, you want people to see you as the go-to person or business for blank type of legal services. Yeah. And that's where it's no different than Starbucks is the go-to company for coffee. Well, you should be the go-to lawyer for blank. And I think at its simplest form, that's what branding is about for lawyers. You can expand from there, right?
Sure. Yeah, no, I agree. I love that definition. And I think for me, the way I think of branding, your brand is simply how you are perceived by the outside world, right? It's when somebody hears your name, when they see your logo, when they think of you, like what thoughts and what feelings come to mind. That's kind of the simplest way to look at what your brand is. Why that's important to understand is because a brand isn't optional. You actually have a brand. Every one of us has a brand. Your law firm and you as an attorney, you have a brand. The question is, are you going to take control of it? The question is, are you going to shape it into something that's a profitable tool that's going to make money for your law firm? And to your point, I think one of the key ways to do that is understanding the importance of zeroing in on a niche. You kind of mentioned, Starbucks. Starbucks is the go-to coffee, right? That's kind of, their coffee shop on every corner. But they've gotten a lot of, criticism and flack over recent years because they've kind of diluted their brand. They went from a super strong coffee-only brand to food, and now they're bringing donuts into it. And so there's a lot of talk out there, and I think actually Howard Schultz has kind of tried to make a point of moving them back towards the core of their brand. But I think, so talk about that a little bit. Let's talk about how narrowing your focus, how standing for something allows you to kind of stand out from a sea of generalists out there.
Yeah, I think it's really easy for lawyers to kind of get drawn into, wanting to practice in multiple practice areas, right? And whether, that's driven by your client's other needs that they have or whatever it might be. But I would argue that it's even more important when you're in a service-based industry than a product-based industry like Starbucks that you do have a focus because it's a lot easier to judge or to kind of know what to expect if I'm buying coffee or a donut. But if I'm buying legal services, I'm in a difficult situation most likely. And I really want to feel confident that you're the best person suited for the job, right? And so if I need a family law attorney, it doesn't matter to me if you do other areas of law. And a matter of fact, to your point, you use the word dilute. I think that's what happens. Like when you market that you practice in multiple areas, you're actually diluting your brand in terms of why ever that person is meeting with you. Yeah. Right? They're there because they need family law, and your brand is why do that and a lot of other things. Yeah. I sell donuts too.
Yeah. And it's like if you're the greatest. Let's put it this way, if you're practicing in all of those other areas of law, how good can you really be at their specific need? And even if you actually, say you're the smartest person out there and you somehow are able to have complete mastery of every area of law, well, even if that's true, your consumers aren't going to perceive it that way. And I think that's why it's so important to narrow that focus. And so one of the things that I've heard attorneys, mention when this conversation comes up is like, hey, look, I love the idea of focusing in on a specific niche. That might even make me happier because I could focus in on the type of work that I actually want to do. But I can't afford it. I can't afford to turn down work from perfectly good clients in other practice areas. And so what I would suggest is don't look at it that way. You actually can start building a brand and kind of tailoring your marketing message to focus in on that specific practice area or niche without immediately turning down work that may come to you from other areas. So ourselves, right? Spotlight Branding, we focus and we work, we focus our marketing, I should say, 100% on small law firms. We have the occasional client or prospect at least that seeks us out and they're in another industry. And we don't necessarily turn them down. If it looks like our services may be a perfect fit, we'll entertain that conversation. But the key is we've shifted all of our marketing and our branding into the niche that we want to be focused on, which naturally attracts, attorneys and allows us to build that specialty in that specific niche. So I think you can continue to take work that may come in from other referral sources, and you can continue to take that income until you get to the point where your brand is strong enough and your kind of market presence is strong enough that you're actually attracting exclusively the work you want to be doing. You can take that other work. So you don't have to make that kind of false choice between building a focused brand and turning down other work.
Well, what's really interesting too is I think a lot of times the conversation is around, to your point, kind of like, if I focus on this thing or this practice area and I really build a brand around being the go-to lawyer for blank, is there enough business out there to support me? I think, first of all, if you were just looking at how much demand is there for whatever you're looking at, almost always there is enough demand, right? I mean, that really shouldn't be the question. The question should be, how can you get enough of the market share, right? Like, if there's plenty of demand out there, how can you get enough of it in order to, not need to justify taking other types of cases? And the funny thing is that I would argue that, again, you got to make enough money to pay the bills, right? But once you are, I mean, even telling your referral sources that you focus on a specific practice area, not taking that extra case that isn't what you focus on, sending it to another attorney, because then even that attorney is going to kind of recognize, oh, okay, Danny sent me this case because he doesn't do this. What Danny does is blank. Yeah. And the next time that lawyer, he or she knows someone who needs that other practice area, they're going to think of you. So my point is, the way that you capitalize on the demand that's out there for your focus, your expertise, is by being seen as the go-to person. And then everybody's going to want to if somebody knows someone who has that need, they're going to think of you. And if somebody themselves has that need, they're going to want to work with you over everyone else because you're the one that focuses on that.
No, that's a great point. And I think that kind of leads to another point, which is part of the reason that I think a brand is so important, particularly in today's legal environment, is because there is just so much competition out there. Now, there's the obvious competition, which is other attorneys in your metro area, in your state, in your town. But there's also increasingly so many online and technological solutions especially for transactional work. You think of things like LegalZoom, you think of Rocket Lawyer, you think of Avo Advisor. There are a lot of kind of low-cost, quote, efficient options out there.
Do it yourself.
Exactly.
Especially,
free even. You can find documents, download it, customize yourself. Obviously, we know why that's a bad idea, but part of the importance of a brand is because it can position you and your expertise above all of that other noise out there, right? There are people out there who are universally going to go with the cheapest option, and they're probably going to go to LegalZoom or find a way to do it completely free, and that's okay. You don't have to attract those clients. Those clients are probably not going to be able to afford you anyways, even if they wanted to. What you do need is to build a brand that positions you above all of that, so the right clients, the ones that can afford you and that see the value in your knowledge and your experience and appreciate what you bring to the table, so that for those people, you're kind of the no-brainer option, and they're just going to choose you over the cheaper competition, and your brand is what gives you the market power to kind of accomplish that.
And I think it's probably important, I don't think we want this episode to turn into us saying you have to have one practice area. I mean, I think that it's just, when we think about branding for lawyers, that's one of the first things that comes to mind. But I mean, I think ultimately, here's my advice to everyone out there, whether you're going to take our other advice, which is to focus on one practice area or not, the biggest thing is that to understand is that, when you think about branding, one of the things that also comes to mind is this whole idea of needing to be like unique, or everyone talks about like differentiating yourself in the market, and there's certainly a place to do that to law firms, right? I just think we want to make sure everyone out there hears that, like, step one with branding is making sure that people trust you, that you seem like you're a go-to resource
Yeah.
for legal problems. And, and there are a lot of studies out there, right, that say that the average person doesn't trust a lawyer. So if you're sitting there in your office right now or at home, wherever you are watching this thinking, oh, everybody trusts me, everybody likes me, well, that's probably just the people that that to be true of, right?
Sure.
Studies would say that the average person you meet actually doesn't trust you. Not because of anything you've done, but because of the negative perceptions out there about lawyers. So more than we're telling you, at least more than I think we're telling everyone out there to focus on one practice area, we're saying just make sure that your marketing as a whole, whether it's online, offline, really communicates that you're trustworthy, that you're credible, that you're willing to help people, that you want to help people, that and I think that's the place to start. And from there, I think you can build on how to differentiate, how to be unique, and all these other things. But my advice is start with credibility, trustworthiness, knowledgeable, seeming, appearing to be an expert. I mean, what do you think about that?
No, I think that's actually a great point. And I think certainly, narrowing your focus probably makes the whole process easier. But regardless, positioning yourself as approachable, as knowledgeable, as someone who actually cares about solving your clients' problems. Those surveys that you were referring to, I think it was an ABA study we saw from a few years back. And one of the biggest issues was that many clients of lawyers felt that the lawyers were more interested in receiving income than in solving their clients' problems. And so if you can build a brand that you care, that you know what you're doing, that you're uniquely positioned to help your clients solve their problems, you've got a big leg up. And as you mentioned earlier, Mark, so many people, when they are in the process of hiring an attorney, they're going through something stressful, right? It might be they're considering divorce. It might be their son just got charged with a DUI. They may have a family member that's trying to immigrate to the United States or is trying to avoid being removed from the United States. They're really stressed out, and so it's really important that you position yourself as like an ally for them and someone they can trust and they can approach, rather than this kind of big, scary, intimidating lawyer, which is how lawyers are perceived. So that's one of the kind of practical takeaways I hope you guys get from this, is that there's a strategic element, but there's also just a personal element of just portraying yourself as somebody who is out to help, to educate, to assist, and who's not scary. If you can accomplish that with your brand, you've actually elevated yourself over a lot of the competition.
And I think what's important too, along with that, is that for everyone watching, we're not we know you already know a lot of this in the sense of why people come to you and what their concerns are. I don't think anyone out there doesn't understand that what people need is someone they know, like, and trust.
Right.
I think that maybe what the average lawyer isn't aware of is that people are kind of preconditioned to not have that perception of you.
Right. No, exactly. I think you're exactly right.
And I think that's why. So it's one thing to trust in yourself and your own abilities, but it's another thing to build your marketing in a way that communicates a strong brand of knowledge, expertise, trustworthiness. And that's why you should watch other episodes, because I'm sure in other episodes we'll go into some more specifics on how to help with that, and how you can do those things. But it's really important to understand where your market's at, what their preconditioned thoughts are.
Absolutely.
I think that's why brand matters.
Yeah, no, exactly. I love it. I think that's a good place to wrap up for today. So we really appreciate you guys joining us. This is kind of our debut episode, so excuse any technical issues we may have had. I think we're going to get this thing figured out, and hopefully it becomes a regular weekly thing where we can provide some real value to you guys. We'd love to hear what you think.
Yes.
Feel free to leave us a comment right now. Shoot us an email. We'd love to get your feedback, maybe your thoughts on time of day that this is best for you guys.
Future
some topics you'd like us to cover. We'd love to hear from you. This is fun for us, but ultimately it's something that we want to do because it provides value to you guys. So let us know how we're doing, where we can improve. Thank you so much, and we will see you guys next time back on Legal Marketing Live.